Hi, Dmitry. Welcome to Venture with Grace today.
Hi, Grace. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Okay, so sorry. On my end, I don't know why there's a delay, but anyway. Okay, so to give the audience a little bit background of Dimitri is a co-founder and CEO at Iterative.ai. He is a former researcher turned startup founder with a background in data management algorithms, including a PhD thesis and industrial data science experience. He has transitioned into the realm of developer cutting edge data infrastructure for AI. Well, welcome. And like, it was so great to meet you at the F4 gathering. And I feel like you were super cool to chat with. And to like start off the show, I would love for the audience to get to know you a little bit more. You know, you come from Microsoft and, talk about like the journey of you starting your company.
Absolutely. So, I did research before, right? Like in my previous life, if you wish.
Mhm.
And then joined Microsoft, was there around 5 years, was data scientist at Bing Ads. So I have seen how modern machine learning looks like. I mean, modern back then, right? In
Mhm.
2015, like machine learning went through like about three waves in the past like 15 years. So it was the second one. And then I realized how the tool set is changing. Like what
Mhm.
I see is like a huge tectonic change in the developer tool set. And I'm like
Mhm.
very passionate about tools, developer tools, machine learning. And I was thinking, oh my God, I need to be like in the very center of this like tectonic change in
Mhm.
developer tool set. And I like tools. I start experimenting with the tools, like how these tools of the future, developed process in the future should be organized. Some part
Mhm.
was clear, some like a basics, right? Like first of all, data changes everything because of
Mhm.
data gravity, right? When you bring like a data to the development cycle, it's like completely change the picture. Our old tool set is not designed
Mhm.
for the data, right? It's designed for source code. It's all around source code, and data changes everything. So data is the core. Well, that's what's very clear.
Mhm.
Second is open source,
Mhm.
right? So no matter like what tool will win in the future, right? And this like developer
Mhm.
tools, tool change, it's going to be open source. That's the only way to adapt, right? So
Mhm.
it's clear that open source is winning in a long run, and it's better to do like open source first. So with this
Mhm.
like two kind of hypothesis in mind, I start
Mhm.
experimenting and I build this open source tool DVC. It was DVC, data version control, right? Open
Mhm.
source tool. It was my pet project for the first like year, about a year. And once it gets
Mhm.
like more traction, more companies start using this, more people start using this, community start building. So then when we start the business, and back
Mhm.
then open source was not kind of the big thing, right? VC was not
Mhm.
talking about open source. This way become like a bit later in 2019-ish.
Mhm.
And yeah, so and since then we are building this the tool set for machine
Yeah,
learning.
totally. You mentioned a really good part about like, the data and open source are two big trends in tech or in like the engineering space. I wonder like when it comes to like the open source movement, like what does it change from the before and the and now? And
You, are you talking about developer use case, a development landscape, or VC? Because they're two different kind of movements here.
I would love to know both.
Yeah, let's talk about both, right? So on developer toolset, yeah, like in 90s 2000, right, it was a big like push on Microsoft, on big companies, right? We need open
Mhm.
source Linux, blah blah blah, right?
Mhm.
And in the long run it's pretty clear that it's open source win, right? All the internet runs on open source, right? All this
Mhm.
like a huge portion of software in open source today. So that's pretty clear that it's winning on the long run on developer side. On VC side, when we were fundraising our first pre-seed round in 2018,
Mhm.
no one really understands open source, and people
Mhm.
VC were thinking like, so are you saying that we are investing money on you and you hire developers, they build software, and you put it on open source, right? On for
Mhm.
free, like it doesn't make
Mhm.
sense. You know,
Mhm.
this was my mindset in 2008, and then we know a lot of discussions about open source. The most
Mhm.
famous paper about open source from VC was something like Red Hat is the only open source company in the world which can exist, right?
Mhm.
uh, and later, in about like 2009, it becomes like a lot of we found like a lot of like blog posts started like pop up here and there. How great is open source? Because open source is good. It's usually about infrastructure.
Mhm.
Infrastructure usually means enterprise. Enterprise means usually means like a big checks, right? All the like
Mhm.
good stuff, and people start realizing that open source infrastructure is like a really good
Mhm.
movement.
So,
And all VCs start talking about this.
mhm.
Hey, oh, you know what?
Mhm.
We invested actually in open source like 3 years ago, right? They kind of like start remembering these facts.
Mhm.
And later it become clear, right? You do infrastructure, so you should definitely consider open sources
So
part of your
basically,
go-to-market.
are you saying like people are, because open source is you share like the code base to the entire internet and the people can build leveraging whatever you provided so that people build on top of your platform and your platform become like, I don't know, AWS or something, and then like so basically your platform become popular, and the more user it gets, the stickier it gets, and then it's more likely you will just receive big checks. Is that how the logic work from a business standpoint?
This is how logic works from developer standpoint and kind of like
Mhm.
sales dynamic, if you wish, right? You have open source, they already using this, you already have trust, right? You
Mhm.
like get some champions, maybe some leads came to yourself without any like specific marketing channel, right? That's how it works from this relationship point of view. On the business side, think about this as a top-down motion and bottom-up option motion, right?
Mm,
And at some point, it becomes really clear that if you're doing SaaS, it's better to have like a bottom-up approach, right?
mm,
When audience came to you because you have a great product and all the stuff, and open source, that's the way how to establish this
mm,
bottom-up approach. And again, like back then, like everyone was thinking like, hey, are you like bottom-up, top-down, right? Today, actually, situation a little bit changed based on
mm,
like what I see today. Like, no one is thinking like, are you bottom-up or top-down? Everyone understands you have to do both at the same time.
mm. So I wonder, like, what are like? I mean, so okay, let's talk about. So I have another question. This will sound really dumb. So are you saying when you were saying like why open source is good? It's because it's sort of similar to like a freemium model. Like, um,
Yeah,
let's say I give you a sample of my product and then you think it's great and then you purchase it later. You convince your company to purchase it later, right? Is that the
yeah.
sales cycle like that? It's not like I have to personally build my house on top of the ground that I purchase. So it's kind of like it's not like you give me a
Yeah,
free land, I build a house, right? It's like it's more of like um I earn your trust by give you something for free and you think it's great and then you will pay for it later.
yeah. But this is only part of this. There's like a lot more component in the open source, right? One component is like how you build trust with the users, right? And your example is about this, right?
Mhm,
Another part related to developers, it's about skills. If you have
mhm,
popular open source, people can hire
mhm,
uh, developers with the skills. For example, you can hire some developers, ML, like platform engineers who are already familiar with DVC, right? So it's a huge
mhm,
advantage to have to use like
mhm,
open source tools. Um, yeah, that's one part of this, like very significant part.
mhm.
Another part, which is crucial from open source, for open source, it's a feedback loop. Because
Sorry,
with
what?
open source, you're not having like one, two,
Mhm,
three clients, right?
mhm,
You are having like from the very beginning, you have like a dozen clients. In the first year,
mhm,
we already talking about like dozen companies. We have no company. It was like one person like calling at night,
mhm,
right? And you already
mhm,
collecting feedback from dozens of company. Like that's a
mhm,
huge from product point of view, from feedback
mhm,
point of view. It's a completely different dynamic. So
mhm,
this like a feedback loop with the users, that's crucial. And users contribute open source as well. They don't contribute a lot, right? If you look at even the popular open source projects, they usually contribution from users like 1%, 5% overall,
mhm,
right? So not like solve.
Oh, okay. So basically, even open source things, it's not like, so the user is not like people are using Reddit contributing a bunch of things. It's more like, a particular company contribute most of it, and then the user could, kind of like change a tiny bit of things.
Yeah, they change it like so they usually don't contribute like a huge changes, right? But they can
Mhm.
contribute some like a lot of like small ones. So
Got
that's
it.
another benefit. But I would not say like initially like people think this is like a crucial part, and it probably was early days for like a Linux project and
Mhm.
such. But for majority like
Mhm.
infra project, we don't see this pattern very often, to be honest, in the industry. It's not about us; it's in general in industry.
Totally. Okay.
Yeah,
So
but
let's, yeah,
feedback is crucial.
mhm,
Feedback,
feedback.
that's my
Okay.
open source.
Um, Totally. Since you are the expert in data versioning, can you talk about like, what is data versioning and why it is important?
Yeah, absolutely. And when we built like first version of DVC, right, like it has like a few components like reproducibility, which is crucial for machine learning, and data versioning, data management. And we realized like data management is a core part. A lot of people use product
Mhm.
just because of data versioning, data management. So that's a problem with data today. So if you are working with a well-structured data, right, you can fit your data to like tables,
Mhm.
Excel, databases, data warehouse, right?
Mhm.
So you're in a good shape. A lot of tools in the market. You have data warehouses, data frames,
Mhm.
visualization tools like Tableau, etc., right?
Mhm.
ETL, data lineage solution, BI solution, blah 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 blah. Blah. Whole huge market, hundreds of solutions, great companies, evolving really fast, all good. The challenge is once you get unstructured data, images, audio, PDFs, MRI scans, you get files. You
Mhm.
get files, you put files on a hard drive or you put files to your S3 drive, right?
Mhm.
What next? What are you doing?
Mhm.
What people do next with the files? And the
Mhm.
problem is then nothing. So
Mhm.
like how ML teams are dealing with this problem today? They're writing their own software to
Mhm.
work with this data, right? You need
Mhm.
to move files somewhere to your machine first, right? You
Mhm.
need to do some processing, pre-processing of these files, right?
Mhm.
Extract text from PDFs, right? And do the
Mhm.
like chunking to fit to your LLM, right? Or you do like
Mhm.
processing of images. You need to score so many stuff, and you hire you like ridiculously expensive PhDs to do this like machine learning job, right? But instead of like doing
Mhm.
this modeling and LLM application, they like move files back and forth and do transformation. So that's the reality in the industry. We
Mhm.
don't have warehouses, we don't have ATL, we have nothing uh,
Mhm.
on the data, on the
Mhm.
structured data side. That's a problem that's needs to be solved in the industry in general. And
Mhm.
we see like that's the opportunity because new wave of data warehouses, BI, ETL needs to
Mhm.
be there. And we believe this needs to be built like on top of existing tool set, but that's completely new tool set.
Mhm.
That's the challenge. And DVC, the first version, the DVC what you see on the market today, right?
Mhm.
Uh, it's also a very simple problem. It says, okay, you point to the files, we get the
Mhm.
files, and we can version the files and transfer files back and forth. As simple as this. And that's already something because there are not many other tools in the market. So that's the data versioning part, and that's what initial DVC was solving. Today we are working actually in a new product. It's not like on the market yet, but we kind of go like a deeper and deeper to this data part because we
Mhm.
realize that people waste majority of their time on preparing data set, not just versioning.
Mhm.
Because DVC assumption is you know your data. You can point
Mhm.
to this like, I don't know, 1 million of files or like 5 files on the storage. But in
Mhm.
reality, you don't know.
Mhm.
You have like a millions and millions of files, and you need to find like a, 20,000 that you really need for your training or for your LLM. So
Mhm.
that's what this new product is about. It's about data curation for the
Mhm.
for the unstructured data. So that's a new coming product, kind of next DVCX.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's the versioning challenge, that data management challenge today.
Totally. Okay. So I know like from my own like research, so data versioning meaning like when a developer writing code, right? Sometimes they made a mistake or like wanted to change something back to the original version. And then
Yeah.
there's only a couple ways to change it. One
Yes.
is to recover everything into the original version, and then maybe like they already made like 45 changes, but like they can just find something back to like the 45 step ahead, like before, right? So basically it's just like the original piece. And then the other way is to valid from or to metadata. I mean, from my basic understanding, I mean, I will probably leave you to talk about these kind of different data
Okay.
versioning implementation because I don't
Definitely.
want to sound like completely wrong because I'm not technical. I'm just trying to understand like the logic behind what are the challenges of data versioning and then what exactly is it. As you mentioned, it's like data curation, data management tool, but
Right.
how does it work for like a regular person who is non-technical?
Yeah. So one problem you mentioned, right? That's a simple one. I mean,
Mhm,
it sounds simple, at least like if you're working in a smaller settings. So if you train a model, you need to trace back to this initial file, right? You need to
mhm,
look at the file and understand like how you get data. If you did, if some processing was done right, you need to understand like what exactly was done right. You kind of can understand this. So that's like a sorry, I would say this is kind
okay,
of
I
like an
hope
easier
not.
easier part of the problem.
Mhm,
So another problem is it's not a problem, but set of challenges, right? How
mhm,
people work with, how people curate data. That's like about
mhm,
the kind of like a new approach of working with data. With the When you work with structured data, all signals are clearly represented in the table,
mhm,
right? For example, this is a record about this a person. You know some information about this person, right? Depending on application, right? And
mhm,
then you build either your model or you slice and dice your data based on this information using like
mhm,
some data frame tools, APIs, etc., right? How about files?
mhm,
There is a file, like, okay, what you can say about the files? Like you want to open it, right? How you can work with these files on a scale of like millions. And some
mhm,
companies, they work with on a billion scale, right? How can you find, for example, like that simple problem,
mhm,
millions of files, I want to
mhm,
remove files that's a small size, right?
mhm. So it's
Below,
unstructured data.
yeah,
So
structured data, you need to
mhm.
go like deep inside uh, to the data.
So how is like so basically let me like basically I'm just using a non-technical lens to this. So basically you're talking about like originally let's say if a sentence says oh Dmitry founded Iterative AI in 2018 and then this company is currently based in San Francisco does XYZ and then
Right.
the original data tool can basically this is a structured data, right? It can be
Yeah,
like hey, give me the person's name, give me the founding time, give me what
exactly.
what it does, right? And then however there's a lot of like for example you and I do this interview and then there's like so much information, it's kind of like our conversation about
Yes.
something, it's like really hard to extract the data of what does Dimitri do and like unless we have like a super strict like introduction at the beginning, like it's really hard to actually process this amount of like really unstructured information. And then basically assuming your tool help people to make it more clear and then make it help it to become better.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get this example. This is a good one. So we are talking about some, I don't know, person, right? And we
Mhm,
know that person hypothetically like funded the company
mhm,
with in an old structured data world. I mean, it's not old; it's still
mhm,
like super relevant. It's a good one. So in a structured data world, you need to have this information presented in the table, and you should
mhm,
say person, founder of the company, year when it was founded, right? All that information is presented, and you will be writing like some uh, code to get this like information, right? In
mhm,
unstructured data world, what do you have? You'll get some PDF file, right, with
Mhm.
information, maybe like thousands of people like in this file, right?
Mhm.
Or maybe there is a video, and instead of doing this straightforward search, right, what you need to run some model. First of all, extract information from the PDF, right, like a text,
Mhm.
and then run this model, or maybe go to like ChatGPT and say, hey, this person, what company he was, the person was funded, right?
Mhm.
Which year the company was funded, right? And ChatGPT gives you like
Mhm.
some reasonable result, or
Mhm.
maybe you run through another model and it gives you
Mhm.
result, or maybe some score,
Mhm.
not necessarily result, right? And what is needed here, you need to manipulate by these models. You need to be able to run your models on a
Mhm.
higher scale, right? Okay, this is my millions of files, PDF files.
Mhm.
Give
Mhm.
me all the founders, right?
Mhm.
Which means extract text first for all the files, right?
Mhm.
And run it through some model, through my model,
Mhm.
and you need to like score, right? You need to
Mhm.
spend your GPU resources, or run calls to ChatGPT or
Mhm.
uh, external services, right? And extract this information. That's interesting question about economy of this, because sometimes it's not clear what is better from economy point of view. But yeah, so that's kind of like a new way of working with information in a quantitative way.
Mm.
Because before, working with on a quantitative way with information usually means slicing and dicing data through data frames and statistics. Today, like a heavy uh, data processing part is involved, and heavy models are involved in this process, and it's like slightly different process.
Mhm. I wonder, okay, so I think that's a really good explanation of it. And I wonder, okay, what does a business site look like? Are you guys selling to like all the startups, or are you guys selling to, individual developers, or like are you guys selling to big companies?
Uh-huh.
How, I guess, like how do people work with this program, and how does it improve like what they were doing originally?
Yeah. So before we jump here,
Mhm.
let me clarify one part. So when
Mhm.
we start, when I was talking about like extracting data, right, applying
Mhm.
model, all the stuff, my assumption is all the models, or at
Mhm.
least majority of the model, they're from on client side, right? And they're very specific for clients. Of course, we have some tools built in, right, in the tools,
Mhm.
especially in the new tool, like connection to ChatGPT, right, and some like
Mhm.
obvious ones. Um, Lava model, like, and others, but that's, we don't build these models, right? That's
Mhm.
not our business. Our business is to organize this process, to help people to enable this like slice and dicing experience, data
Mhm.
set curation experience.
Mhm.
So yeah, on the business point of view, we're an infrastructure company, right?
Mhm.
So with the new product, we give kind of a platform,
Mhm.
data platform for clients.
Mhm.
We deploy this platform on the client side, on
Mhm.
their AWS account, Google Cloud account, or
Mhm.
Azure, right? And some tools like help them to slice and dice, prepare a data set, version data set. So that's all good stuff for
Mm.
data set creation.
Mm. I wonder, since we talk about you guys are open source, and then like you guys are infrastructure company, and then I wonder what is a go to market like? So let's say if I'm a developer, like I have used your product,
Mhm.
and then like what does a touch point look like from you guys? I know, I personally
Yeah.
signed up for the your course. You guys have a course on like
Yes, we're doing.
literally what it is. Okay. But I wonder, okay, so what is the process look like when after I used your product before? Are you guys selling directly to that developer, or like it's like are you box selling to the company? And what kind of company are they? Are you guys targeting tech startups, or are you guys targeting the bigger company to purchase the product?
Yeah. So there are two approaches to this, right? Like as we discussed, like
Mhm.
bottom up, right, and top down.
Mhm.
And as usual, right, as majority of
Mhm.
the company, we combine both, right? We have like a
Mhm.
top down motion with the sales folks, right, and bottom
Mhm.
up, it's based on open source, on our events, and etc. So in In a bottom-up case, the usual story is there is some company and some couple of engineers,
Mhm.
MLEs, right, using our tools,
Mhm.
sometimes for years. And at
Mhm.
some point, they realize that they need to kind of scale this more, and they get to the point that they need like kind of a platform to
Mhm.
enable this for the broader team. And
Mhm.
they came to us. We start discussion. They kind of like raise hands somewhere, like
Mhm.
on the chat, on the channel. They can sometimes on Meetup, sometimes directly, and then we start this discussion, right? And then it becomes kind of a usual sale because it's a part of infrastructure.
Mhm.
You cannot sell just to developers, right? They cannot just swipe card and it's done, because you need to go through the security, especially if you're talking about bigger companies, through security, through procurement, and etc. And those
Mhm.
folks have become like our champions in the
Mhm.
process, right?
Mm.
So in some cases, it still can take like a time to go through this like sales process, but the major part is here if you have a good champions. So that's
Mm.
the usual approach. Top down for us is also happening.
Mhm.
We also working on this, of course, but that's kind of like a more traditional part.
Mhm.
An example, when we start working with the new tools on the new like DVCX, right? And
Mhm.
DVCX we built in a different way. We didn't start like open source first and then commercial. We started with the platform with commercial one, and open source is coming later this year. So we kind of did like more top down, but among our users.
Mhm.
And one deal was done just purely top down, who
Mhm.
was actually from broader community but not our users. And the second deal was the among the community. So they already using DVC and they say, okay, we need like more data curation tools.
Mhm.
And so, and right now we are talking about the big companies, right? Right now we
Mhm.
are talking about like huge ones,
Mm.
Fortune 500. But sometimes it happens with smaller companies, and it's usually faster, smoother.
Mm. I wonder, like, so are you, so basically you guys are mostly like developers would discover the product first and then you guys sell it to them.
Yep.
I wonder, like, for a technical product like this or like infrastructure product, what is the sale? I guess, like, who are you guys trying to target? Are you guys trying to target, let's say, smaller companies to sell like individual engineers, or are you trying to target, like, is Google your client? Or I mean, of course, you don't have to disclose any specific clients, but like in
Right.
general, like, what are we looking at from like a business standpoint?
That's a good question. And right now, to be honest, we are not kind of verticalized yet. And I hope that we will be
Mhm.
like more like specific vertical at some point. But right now, we are playing kind of like on a platform, and we are saying what we need is a good team that
Mm,
needs our product, right?
mm,
And this team can be a team in a huge organization, or it can be
mm,
team of like in a startup, like 20, 15
mhm,
people startup. So
mhm,
today we are saying like we work with both, right?
mhm,
And among our customers, we have like a few dozens of customers, and about 20-25% Fortune 500. And it's not
mm,
because we are targeting the big ones, it's because it's kind
mhm,
of like naturally happening.
mm. Got
But
it.
at some point, yes,
So,
I would
mhm,
expect we will be like more verticalized later on
mhm,
sales, or
mhm.
will mature, and we will need some, specialization.
Totally. I wonder, okay, so data versioning market was valued at 600 million in 2022, and they expected to reach over a billion by 2030. In the domain, there's a couple players, right? There's Lake FS, Delta Lake, Pachyderm, and AWS, and you guys. So, like, how do you see the differentiation between these different competitors, and how do you see your product kind of like succeed in this sector?
Uh-huh. Yeah, good question. And so, if you're talking about data versioning market, right?
Mhm,
My opinion is this unstructured data versioning, it's
mhm,
all changing, it's all evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And like today, like we are getting like more and more unstructured data. Everyone is sitting like on the data. They don't know like what to do with this, especially like large
Mm-hmm.
organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's crazy how much data people accumulate. Every customer is saying like how much data we have, and they're saying like one complete example. Today we are owning like about 300 millions of images, and we are growing like about two times a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy, and that's only image that they are able to process, label, and work with, right? I'm not talking
Mm-hmm.
about all the like videos they're taking overall, because it
Mm-hmm.
can multiply 10 times, even probably 100 times. So I believe this market is on the long term, it's a huge, it's like way bigger than structured data market.
Mm-hmm.
On the competitor landscape, there are one important thing. Sometimes it's really hard to distinguish like what is structured data tool, what is not structured data tool,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's important to understand like what tools are good for structured, what do not, and which tools do not work for unstructured, right? So that's like a big
Mm-hmm.
differentiator. In this sense, for example, you mentioned like data lake from Databricks, right? Great
Mm-hmm.
product, but that's structured data.
Mm-hmm.
You won't benefit if you like for images or PDF files, right? It won't help you,
Mm-hmm.
right? On unstructured side, I see like two types of competitors.
Mm-hmm.
One is a platform. I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about the big clouds, right? You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
AWS, but there is also Azure. Vertex have a really good offering on
Mm-hmm.
the data side, and they're kind of like trying to get more and more products related to unstructured data.
Mm-hmm.
So clouds, right? And in this sense, it's important to have like a not like cloud agnostic game,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of companies multi-cloud today. A lot of companies don't want to be attached to the cloud, right? And this like a
Mm-hmm.
cloud agnostic play, it's very appealing for many clients. That's one bucket, right?
Mm-hmm.
Platform. You can put Databricks to the same bucket, right? You can put Snowflake to the same bucket. They're kind of more on structured side, but they're working on the structure. They're trying to kind of get more and more on the structured side. So the second bucket, because of space is really new, the second bucket is mostly contains startups.
Mm-hmm.
And those startups are targeting specific unstructured data use cases. And that's the exciting part for
Mm-hmm.
us. And in the past, like couple of years, there are a lot of companies who like specifically targeting unstructured data. So it's Voxel 51, Visual
Mm-hmm.
Layer, great like data visualization tools for unstructured data, right? You
Mm-hmm.
throw images, right, and they kind of build you a picture of your data set. Amazing. That's like what is needed. So labeling tools,
Mm-hmm.
almost every label provides some basic functionality for this.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of more label focusing, but there is something, right? Who else? Activeloop, actively working on this unstructured data stuff. Um, LakeFS, you mentioned, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
LakeFS.
Mm-hmm.
They also kind of like on this like middle structured and structured stuff side. Yeah. So here, when you talk about unstructured side, we are mostly talking about startups. It's a new,
Mm-hmm.
it's evolving.
Mm-hmm.
That's uh, new area, exciting area.
Yeah, I feel like definitely there's a lot to Google for me later on. I feel like I really like that you kind of like create like a couple bracket for us. And I want to end with, what do you think is the future of iterative AI?
So we always like focusing on this like data structured, unstructured data management. For us, that's uh, always was big focus and still is. And I expect more and more people, more and more
Mhm.
companies will be working with unstructured data challenges. Today we are kind of on the another wave of machine learning when everyone is excited about new
Mhm.
algorithms, methods, like all this like chat GPT,
Mhm.
stable diffusion, all the stuff, right? All exciting stuff.
Mhm.
But at some point, and we know this from history of machine learning from
Mhm.
previous ways, right? The algorithmical uh, 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 progress will slow down at some point, right? It can happen this year, it can happen in 5 years, right? But we'll
Mm.
get to some plot on our algorithms in this area. And then all the breakthrough is going to be happen by data, right?
Mhm.
It's like when I was data scientist on the previous wave of machine learning, right? We majority of our time we were spending on data
Mhm.
preparation, data cleaning, data quality, all the stuff. And machine learning part was just, like the last part of the process, right? The same is going to happen on the other areas, right? On
Mhm.
LLMs today, it's pretty clear. Data preparation, validation, it's become bigger and bigger focus today, right? And in all the other areas, it will be like a core for the business.
Mm. Okay,
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much, Dimitri, for coming on the show today. Where can we find you?
Yeah. Uh, I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, so pretty active on socials. If you want to find me, please follow up.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you for coming today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Grace, for the questions. Great discussion.